Welcome to the Joyosity Podcast. If you are joining us for the first time, we are so glad that you are here. And I want to tell you that we do all of our work here on 3 bedrock beliefs. Because you are part of the community, we want to make sure you understand. So, true leadership requires more than just surface level strategies, it requires a profound commitment to everything that makes us human. And 2, we use genuine curiosity so we can create positive culture because we've got all these complex people that we've got to work with. And we want to make that a positive experience of seeing people. And 3, joy is at the heartbeat of a healthy leader and a healthy organization. We're putting that front and center. So every week we have great conversations. We bring you dynamic leaders who have hard-won wisdom, real life experience, and leading research that helps us really lead along the way. I'm Jen Whitmer. I'm an international speaker, leadership consultant, and all-around joy bringer, hosting you and guiding us along the way so we can move from ideas to action, really embracing the challenges that come at us in the dynamic world that we live in. So get yourself ready, grab your multiple beverages, get your speakers ready, because we are going into part 2 of our conversation with Ken Black. So if you haven't listened to last week's conversation, you should totally listen. His whole story is really powerful. And we talked about what are the lenses that we see the world through and why that really matters is what we're going to get into today. So Ken is a leadership consultant. He helps guide people through seeing things differently because he really believes that seeing things differently changes everything. So creative and systems thinking experience from design, really to uncover and accelerate your business and your leadership. So he's worked in and around Nike and he's founded teams. He's worked in corporate. He's worked as an entrepreneur, and he has all of this amazing experience coming back to really helping people see things differently so they change things and really make an impact on the world. So let's welcome Ken back for our conversation. So
Hey,
glad.
Jen, how are you? Good to be back.
So glad that you're here. So, as I said in the intro, we really dove in last week about what is a value and how you defined values was super powerful. So, I'm wondering, before we jump into why values really matter, if you could redefine how you see values as lenses and what that's about.
Sure. Yeah. Again, connecting to my central theme of seeing different changes everything, which you said before, is a solid belief that if we look at, and we talk about having a vision for ourselves or a vision for our company, that is literally about seeing. And then we break that into values and break that into some other things that we kind of need to carry with us or use as a fence or guide rails for what we do, which oftentimes, in my opinion, becomes baggage as opposed to being fingertips, informative, changes behavior. If it's true that our eyes lead our body, they throw you a ball, your eyes are going to go to it and catch it. Like anywhere we want to go, we're looking first. Then the same applies conceptually to what I think values should be, which are more lenses than baggage or bricks, right? And so if I say I want to, my values, my lenses are curiosity and questioning and optimism and competitiveness, a few that are mine, then as the world throws things at me in business or relationships or otherwise, think about it. If I take these lenses off and I put some other ones on, obviously I put on shades, I see the world slightly differently.
Right.
Yeah. And so that to me is the significance of talking about values as lenses, because it influences the way in which we see the world around us and we see the things that are coming to us. And that in turn can't help but influence our behavior as we respond to them. And that allows us to maintain who we are, deal with the world in really positive and other ways around us without letting those things that are coming in change the shape of who we are. And, I think a lot of us have midlife crises and even from a career standpoint, like, how the hell did I end up here? Right? Because the world has made me what it needed me to be, as opposed to what I always thought I could. So
it's such a great definition. So when you were talking about, you throw a ball, you look, like where you see, and when my kids were little, so we've got 4 kids, and my second son in particular would constantly move not looking where he was going. Like, I mean, that's a common thing for kids, but
Mhm.
he did it well
Yep.
past where it's typical. And
Mhm.
like the phrase in my house was always, "Put your eyes where you wanna go. Put your
Yep.
eyes where you wanna go." Or they would go look for something,
Yep.
and they would look at the ceiling, and I would be
Mhm.
like, "It's never gonna be on the ceiling."
Yeah.
You just start like,
Exactly.
"Look with your eyes, not
Yep.
with your mouth." Like, those
Yep.
are the things that would come out of my mouth. The
Mhm.
irony of that story is that he is now 20 years old. He's currently in New Zealand studying exercise science,
Wow.
and, like, it's all about the body, and
Yep.
it's
Yep.
really great. So something got through, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
But,
Very cool.
I think that when we think about what happens when he
Mhm.
would not look for things, like there was
Mhm.
constant, I don't know how many, I'm surprised I didn't lose a toenail,
Mhm.
the amount of times he stepped on my foot because he wasn't looking where he's going
Yep.
or running into things. And I think when we extend that analogy,
Yep.
how did I end up here? Well, that's how we ended up here.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily where we wanted to go.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the important things about why values matter so much. And I think it's easy to dismiss. Yeah, yeah, we've got values. We put them up on the wall, and sure, we've done the work, quote unquote.
Mhm.
But I'd love for you to share with us when you really put the work into values and you start operating by them and you see them as these lenses, what
Mhm.
changes? Like you talk about it changes everything, but what
Mhm.
changes in our businesses? What changes in our
Mhm.
leadership when that happens?
Yep. Um, y I'll reference, conversation, years ago. I was in a group. Um, we had the chance to sit down with Pete Carroll when he was head coach of the
Mm,
Seahawks, and we were doing the Spark thing in the early days. We had some connection with him at USC as well. And the thing that Pete always talked about is the significance of a personal philosophy, right? And the importance of the people who are working for you, in his case, players, knowing who you were and what you stood for and what you wanted. And one of his lines that stuck with me was, he said, "If they know that I love them, they will do anything for me."
mhm.
And it's not about manipulative. It's about how do I show love, right? So that would be a lens, which would be I enter every moment, every practice with love as one of my lenses as a forefront that would make sure that the environment that they're in feels connected in a really specific way,
Yeah.
right? And we know like he won a national. He's one of the few coaches that won a national championship in college, won a Super Bowl. Um, and that really, I think, is at the heart of it, which is you can't lead unless you can articulate a clear vision.
Yeah.
And I think all the business books talk about that, and then they go straight to the missing gap, which I think we're talking about here, is we go straight to then what kind of leader do you want to be? How do you and the books are, here are the 5 things you do. Here's level 5 leadership. Here's
Mhm.
whatever. Like it's straight into the tactics of what makes a good leader.
Right.
But I think the second piece to that is, one, can you articulate a clear vision that whether it's one person or 700 people can understand and say, oh, that I might sign up for that. The next thing they're going to look at is you and say, and why would I give myself, my belief, my time, my energy, my hope to you to go up that mountain?
Mm,
And that is where I don't think we develop leaders in ways to understand that there is something unique and special about each one of us, that if we can get to the heart of it,
mhm.
um, it becomes the thing that attracts people to us and has folks go, I love that vision, and I think I can trust you. I want to go up the hill with you. That's
I
where, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I think that's what's so important, and it's hard to trust somebody who doesn't know themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because they seem shifty, even if they're not shifty.
Right.
Like, even if they're not lacking in integrity,
Yep.
they just they don't you can't I always talk about 2 sides of the Velcro. You have
Yep.
to know what your side of the Velcro is to stick to
Mm-hmm.
somebody else, and it's hard to follow somebody, it's hard to trust
Mm-hmm.
if they don't know who they are.
Yep.
Really
Exactly.
important.
Exactly. I'll give you my own personal example. Most recently, until about March of this year, I was at a creative agency for 4.5 years, and we talked about this last time. The CEO brought me on really as a partner. We wanted to see how creative leadership could change the culture and
Mhm.
really transform who the agency was. They've been around for 40 years. As Tyson said, he's like, what got us here is not going to get us to our next version of ourselves. And if
Mhm.
we don't change how we're doing what we're doing, or transform in some way, the world's going to make us into what it wants us to be. He's like, and I'm not willing to do that. And so
Yeah.
kudos to him for having the courage. Many CEOs don't have the courage to actually follow through and push on that change. But what we were able to do is cast a really clear vision of what GMR, what the agency should be in the long run. The good thing for me is I had the chance to do this work myself. And so this idea of knowing I was there to help this place see differently needed to fundamentally, like, we can't just go in and say, hey, why are you doing that? Change it. There needs to be an understanding or a way in which everybody in that place could go, well, this is who we always thought we were, but we could possibly be that. And that's where the vision comes in. But the second thing is then, and what about you makes you someone that could help lead us to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'll tell you my lenses, like, I keep them with me all the time: questioning, ingenuity, connecting, optimism, action, and competitiveness. Right. And so very specifically chosen based on my history, where I've been, but also how I want the world to see me. And, I think it was 2 weeks into the job. I think 2 or 3 weeks into the job, there were a bunch of old timers that kind of ended up in my office. We were after hours having a beer or whatever. And they said, yeah, you got these these ideals right now, but give it 6 months, you'll be pickled like the rest of us. Right? You'll give up. And I'm like, I'm not going to be pickled. I might be the cucumber sitting in the hot tub, like, whatever, but half of me, but like, this part is not. So we'll get there. But throughout those four and a half years, I was able to use those values as lenses to address whatever was asked of me. I still knew, hey, I'm going to approach this with questioning, because the idea of questioning what comes in not only gives time to figure out what's going on, but it grows the people who report to me to understand how to be critical thinkers, right?
Yeah.
And that I think is probably what had the greatest impact on my ability to be an agent for change, and also for those others in the agency who did not want to see change, to recognize why I was there, and also that I was there with really good intent. It was not about something that was ego. I wasn't using this to find my next career path or next job, but the way of doing it really was connected to what that vision was, and given folks a reason to believe. And the fun part is, I just had a catch up with someone who was on my creative team last week, and the way they played back to me the way they saw my impact on the deal is exactly connected to the lenses that I built, which is like the amazing version of going, this is who you are and this is who you were to me and to us, is ridiculous. And I can't tell you how great it feels. And I know that some of those things will stick with them forever. And so if you want to have impact, that's the deal. And then there's, I'll stop there for a second. I do have one example of how it actually helps with leading individuals in certain contexts as well, but I'll stop there for a minute.
No, I think that's a great place to stop, because as I'm researching more and more for the book that I'm writing, where values and the lenses is a whole chapter, and digging in, and I've used some of it in keynotes before, but what I keep finding fascinating is how much that high trust cultures that are positive, that center humans and are based on values, like those three components, consistently outperform in profit other companies. So I think we get it backwards sometimes in American business culture when we say the bottom line is first, when actually you have to solve a problem, and you can't know what problem you want to solve if you don't know what you value. That's the point of business. And then you can't create a high trust culture that the humans who do the work don't. Again, back to that idea of, like, you don't know how you see the world. You don't know what part of your stickiness is. You can't trust somebody that you don't know where they are. And they can't create a space of trust if they don't know where they are. So I think that's your story illustrates what all the research continues to show us. And I'd love to hear, when you're talking about developing leaders, why values really matters there. Because I think sometimes people get confused. They're like, well, my values at home are different than my values at work. And I disagree with that.
I agree. Yeah, I'm with you.
You are wherever you go, there you are. And I'm not home shopping Netflix. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
Shopping on Amazon, watching
Yeah.
Netflix while on a client call.
Right.
I'm one human that is
hmm
whole, and that
hmm
creates that space. So how do you see that playing out in your development of healthy leaders?
Yeah. Um, Amazing question. And it does get to the heart of so many things. Like, I wish we had more time, because the whole work-life balance, and am I
Oh
what
my
I
God.
am at home versus what I am here. It's like, we're one individual with different parts and different dynamics. And personally, I think one of the great challenges in life is figuring out who you are, and living that version of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever situation you're in, even though you have to, it depends who you're talking to. You're of course going to be respectful of who you're talking to or the situation you're in, but it doesn't mean you change who you are. As it comes to development of team members, so at the agency, I did this same work with I have 4 key leaders, and we did this work together, individually and then shared together. But we had the why. So the why, which is kind of a vision, my how, and then each of their lenses. And a couple things happened. One, nobody's ever talked to them in this way, which was amazing. Most of us, as we come up, don't have somebody that takes the time and says, hey, who are you, and what is the best of you, that you would like to put a hallmark on, and things that you want to add that make you even better, and
Mm-hmm.
use that as a light, a beacon to light your path and how you go. We don't do that. We put people in a job and say, do that job.
Right.
So that was one thing. The second thing is when, and they, this was not forced. It's like, let's share each other's deal. Like, I share my how, why, and lenses with everybody who's working for me. It's like, this is what I'm in it for. This is what you can expect from me. Which makes for no surprise. As they shared it with each other, the connection to each other and the awareness of, oh my God, that's why you're here. Like, wow, that's all of the situations over the last 2 weeks that I've had with you, I think about totally differently now, right? And so
Yeah.
we begin to see each other, which I think is important. And then the third piece is how you apply that to action. So one of the leaders that worked for me, they are amazing, amazing human, operationally focused, very driven, very forthright. Like, let's get work done. Super accountable. Accountability is a huge hallmark. And the other lens that they wanted to use, there were lenses like that, but the other lens that they had in there was kind, which is interesting, having all these really direct stuff, and then kindness is one of them. And so as we talked through it, it became very clear. And as I looked at them and how they led and the relationship they had with folks, it's like, kindness is a huge piece of it, but not necessarily how the world might be seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
I got at one point some blowback from, departments always have like, it's our thing, it's their thing, whatever. Another department who was being held accountable for some stuff that they should have, kind of whinging a little bit and coming back saying, hey, we need you to talk to your person about. And one, I didn't really agree with the argument with them, but what I was able to do is we sat down and said, hey, let's pull out your leadership philosophy. And let me ask you a question. As we look at this in the context of these two people, what of the lenses, what lenses are you wearing when you're talking to them? Which means, what lenses are they seeing you through? And they go, well, these 4 of the 5, it's these 4. And which one are they not seeing? Which lens are they not seeing you through? Kindness. Okay, so whose option is it to take off or not put those on or put them on? It's mine. Okay, so as you work with them, do you want them to only see you as the 4, or do you want them to see you as the whole thing? And that was the end of the conversation. And to be able to have a development conversation in a way that is connected to who they've said they want to be, as opposed to, you're effing up, or you're doing this wrong, or you pissed some people off. And we all have been in those situations where a boss has said, you need to fix this. And you're like, I don't think I even actually did. I don't think that's me. Right? Again, asking us to be something we're not. And so I think as a leader, one, it allows us to be really if we are clear on these things, it allows us to be open and aware of how we're coming across to the world, how the world is seeing us. Are they seeing us the way in which we're trying to see them, or not? And if not, how do we adjust our filters to shape our behaviors? Because we have choice in those things.
Absolutely. And it's so powerful. And growing up in the world as an educator, because I
Mhm.
was an educator for 20 years,
Mhm.
I think about the development, if we transfer that like to students, the development conversations, the coaching conversations I had with students that did hold them to who do you want to be were
Mhm.
always, always so much more lasting and powerful.
Mhm.
And I think that that is who we are as humans. We don't like typically what we're stuck in,
Right.
but we don't always know how to get out of it.
Mhm.
And when we reduce it to shame, which works
Mhm.
for a while, but not long term,
Mhm.
and usually more damaging in the end, or we resort to blame, like it's never me, it- things don't actually change for the long term. We're coming back and having the same damn conversation again.
Mhm.
But when we hold people to the idea of, here's who I see in you, or
Mhm.
here's what you said you wanted to be, people hold themselves to that level of accountability. Last month, I had Mo Carrick on, who is a culture expert, and we were talking about when people feel seen, they bring their best to
Yep.
work. That
100%.
like, employee engagement isn't about the survey, it's about
Mhm.
bringing your best to work because they feel like it's valued and they're seen. And
Mhm.
this type of development conversation, professional and still holding somebody accountable, produces the long-term results that we want.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's
No
so
doubt.
powerful. It's so
Yep.
powerful. Um, Man, I hate to end this part of the conversation, but, we have to stop for today, but
Okay.
good news is, friends, usually we have 2 episodes, but we have Ken for 3, and so we're gonna come back and talk about, well, how does that really work? How do we look at values and how that we can start applying some of this in our everyday walking around lives, and so thanks for being here again, and we will be back. So let me put my coach hat on for just a moment. Don't just leave this here. Take a moment. What did you learn? What's your next tiny action step? Share this episode with someone and tell them what you're going to do. Check the show notes for all the links and connect with us on LinkedIn and all the other socials, or just, drop me an email at Jen with 2 N's at jenwhitmer.com. We want to keep this conversation going with you. I know your earballs have a lot coming at them, so thank you for listening to the Joyosity podcast and being a part of our community. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe. It helps more people join us in the movement to create positive culture with complex people. So work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. Can't wait for you to join us.